Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Woo, let's hear it. Let's hear it for the thunderstorm. On behalf of the Indiana Non-Public Education Association, I want to welcome you to this very historic evening, our 50th Anniversary Gala. Let's hear it for the gala. My name is Dr. Daryl Hagan, and I have the pleasure of serving as your MC tonight. And instead of telling you our story, we would like to show you our story. We've put together a brief video that we believe captures the heart of our association. It shares our shared values, our shared vision, and our shared successes. Please take a look.
The mission of INPEA is to advocate, promote engagement, and to advance non-public schools in Indiana.
Prior to 1974, when we were established, in terms of having a voice at the broader education table in Indiana, I don't think we were at the table. 12 non-public school leaders realized that there were things that they could do better together than as an individual school or even a group of schools. And out of those visionary 12 people now birthed the organization that represents 375 schools across the state of Indiana in various different jurisdictions or group of schools.
From faith-based schools to independent schools.
All demographics from all economic levels.
And that is what makes us strong.
We have an advocacy side, so we advocate at the General Assembly with the Indiana Department of Education, State Board of Education, and we also have a professional development and consultation side. We do conferences and training, whatever we can to support the viability and the quality of Indiana's non-public schools.
It's kind of hard to imagine that INPEA has been around for 50 years. Non-public schools are recognized, valued, and appreciated more because of INPEA. They know we exist.
You talk about getting excited and getting the passion going. There are 4 Christian schools up in Northwest Indiana that are growing exponentially.
Highland Christian is really special. Families have been going to the school for over 5 generations. The school has grown over the last couple of years from being a school of around 400 5 years ago to being a school that's knocking on the door of 700. Families that come to Highland Christian stay at Highland Christian, and I give credit to INPEA and the way that they serve their schools. I have great confidence in the wisdom that they're providing and the backing that they have for us. When I talk to organizations and schools out of state, it's uncommon that they have those relationships, and they often marvel about saying, wow, you have a seat at the table, you have a voice that's heard. There have been some schools in our area that are not members of INPEA, and they call me and say, hey Kyle, can you help me out with this matter? And I said, this is why you need to be a part of INPEA, is you have great resources at your disposal, and it's something that membership with INPEA is a non-negotiable for our school.
I moved to the US when I was about 5 years old. My mom wanted something better for me. She wanted me to have a better education. As soon as she could, when she found out about the choice program through a friend at my elementary school, which was a public school, she enrolled me in a Catholic middle school. I really valued the private education that I was receiving, and I wanted to continue that in high school. So I made the decision of continuing my Catholic education and coming to Bishop Knoll. Letting me come to Bishop Knoll because of the choice program, I was able to involve myself in a school like this that opened the door for me to have so many wonderful opportunities that eventually led to me applying for the Lilly Scholarship and winning that scholarship. That now allows me to continue my Catholic education at the University of Notre Dame. INPEA and the Choice Scholarship is what has gotten me here. INPEA is there to help and to help students be the best that they can be, and I wouldn't be where I am without them.
She's representative of a lot of our high school graduates, and there's those stories all over the place. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what makes me passionate, when we know that we're impacting not only kids' lives, but families' lives. But there's still a lot more to do.
Education is always changing, always evolving. Anyone that has an interest in promoting non-public education needs to be engaged, because the work is never done.
We want people to reach out to us and say, how can we help achieve this next level that INPEA is working for, whether that's universal choice or something else 10 years down the road in the future.
We continue to see how we can continue to move the needle. And that's what I see INPEA doing. They've done for the last 50 years and will continue to do in the future, is bringing excellence to non-public education, continuing to push the envelope about saying, how can we serve our students best? How can we serve our communities well? And how can we ensure that all of our non-public schools have the resources and support to see that every kid is meeting the goals that are set out for them?
I don't know about you, but I saw at the very beginning of the video a very, very young and very dapper Glenn Tebby. Glenn's over there somewhere. There he is. He's trying to hide. But Glenn, did you see yourself? You were looking good, my friend, looking good. And speaking of Glenn Tebby, who is certainly one of our VIPs tonight, we are blessed to have a room full of VIPs, starting with our non-public school teachers. Let's give them a little round of applause. Thank you, teachers, for being here. I hope today at INPEA that you were able to learn something new, have some fun, but please know how valued and appreciated you are. We also have our wonderful school administrators, who we couldn't have our schools without them. So let's give them a round of applause. The remaining people we can just kind of group together, you know? It's really about our teachers and our principals. Everybody else, we're just on the other side, helping and supporting. Jurisdictional leaders from INPEA, our INPEA board members, both past and present, our INPEA friends. I'm considered a friend now. Our sponsors, as you know, we could not do this without our wonderful sponsors. And tonight we are blessed to have Dr. Katie Jenner, Indiana Secretary of Education, and the team from the Department of Education. Katie, they want to clap for you. Even though, see, Katie, I told them not to, but they did it anyway. Katie, I'm the guy that every time I see you, I like to remind you of something. Do you know what that is? Okay, you grew up in Owensboro, Kentucky. I grew up in Henderson, Kentucky. Not quite the same time that you did. But you and I, what you and I have in common is we were both smart enough to move to Indiana. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we are blessed also to have Indiana Representative Bob Baining and State Senator Jeff Rotz with us, I believe, as well. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support. And we have former Governor Mitch Daniels as our speaker. We are really excited to hear from you. I shared with Governor Daniels that the first time, I'm going to share this, that the first time I met him, I was sitting at the State House, Katie, and I think in your office, it was somebody else's office at the time, and my back was to the door, and we were in the middle of a meeting, and somebody came in, and I could hear somebody coming in, and he said, "Can I get anybody some coffee?" And I was like, "Oh, I might want some coffee." And then people were like, "Oh, And I was like, what? And I turned around, it's the governor. He's literally, he's coming in, making sure anybody needs a drink or how everybody's doing. And I just remember the servant leadership, Governor Daniels, and very much appreciate all that you've done for our kids in the state of Indiana. Thank you. I became a part of the INPEA family 15 years ago when, as superintendent of Catholic schools for the wonderful Diocese of Evansville, we're those people in the South, I served as a jurisdictional board member for 12 years. And during that time, I also had the honor of serving on the INPEA Executive Committee almost, I think it was a decade, including being president of the board. 3 years ago, I began a new role at the Catholic University of America as director of a national institute that supports our Catholic schools. I'm also blessed to serve in the Department of Education. Our institute is the home of Lumen Accreditation. It is the first national preschool through 12th grade accreditation for Catholic schools. And I'm blessed tonight to be here with Dr. Andrew Kramer, who is actually the director of that program. So a shout out to Andrew. And if that's not enough, I have the joy of chairing the INPEA's 50th Anniversary Committee over the past 2 years with a wonderful group of people who we are going to recognize a little later, but we all consider this a labor of love that has led us to this very special evening. As many of you personally know in this room, it is almost impossible to say no to one John L. Sesser. Mary McCoy, Scott Schumacher, and Dr. Kara Bratton, am I right? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And so tonight, we gather to celebrate 50 years of INPEA's contributions and to look ahead with excitement to the future. Over the decades, INPEA has been shaped by dedicated educators, leaders, and supporters like those in this very room. How many of you are familiar with the work of Edward Lorenz? He's the scientist behind what became known as the butterfly effect. The idea that if a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the earth, it can set in motion a hurricane on the other side. Applied to people, the lesson is simple. Everything we do matters, one way or the other. And tonight, that theory has come to life. As noted in the video, on February 17, 1974, 12 representatives from non-public schools across Indiana gathered at Park Tudor Schools in Indianapolis. That night, they agreed to form an association to serve the interests of non-public education in our state. Because they chose to meet 50 years ago, thousands and thousands of Indiana students, families, our teachers, principals have been impacted for good. Because they chose to meet, you are here tonight. And because you are here tonight, it is inspiring, so inspiring, to imagine the ripple effects, the chain of events, if you will, that will be shaping our next 50 years. And as we think about the next 50 years, it is clear the future of INPEA will be carried forward by students and the young leaders of today. And like John, I'm gonna put John in this category, maybe Sir Glenn Tebby, I think it's pretty clear we probably won't be here at the 100th celebration. There's a good chance that this young man might be. Quinn Anderson, a sophomore at Bishop Chatard Catholic High School, represents that very future. Quinn, we would be honored if you would come forward and lead us in tonight's dinner invocation. As Quinn comes forward, I want to give a shout out to his parents, Kent and Andrea Anderson. Thank you for sharing your son with us this evening. Andrea is the Communications and Member Relations Director for INPEA. Quinn, I understand you had a big celebration last week. Am I right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody what it is?
It's my birthday.
Yeah, this young man turned 16 last Friday. 16. How many of us remember 16? This is what 16 looks like. Quinn?
Let us bow our heads in a spirit of gratitude and reflection. Gracious and eternal God, we gather tonight with thankful hearts to celebrate 50 years of dedication, faith, and service through the work of the Indiana Non-Public Education Association. Thank you for the vision of those who laid the foundation of this organization and for the countless educators, leaders, families, and supporters who have carried that vision forward. As we reflect on the INPEA's legacy, we are mindful of your presence and guidance through every challenge and triumph. Bless this evening, our conversations, our fellowship, and this meal that we share. May it nourish our bodies, even as this celebration nourishes our spirits. With gratitude, we offer this prayer. Amen.
Thank you, Quinn. Enjoy your dinner. I hope that you have been able to enjoy your meal and conversations at your table. I always know that when a speaker is trying to move the program forward, it's a good sign that you're still talking because you're enjoying yourself, and that's what we want. We want to celebrate the best of INPEA. If you haven't finished your meal or your dessert, please feel free to continue as we move into the next part of our program. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Southern Indiana. It's where I'm from. And so Evansville Christian, Evansville Lutheran, and Evansville Catholic, I see you. I see you. Table 70, I see you. It is now my privilege to introduce someone who has stepped into a very important role for INPEA and its future. Since June, James McNeely has served as the Executive Director of the Indiana Non-Public Education Association. Before this role, he led Guerin Catholic, where under his leadership, the school was named one of the top 50 Catholic high schools in the nation and a 2024 National Blue Ribbon School. And if that wasn't enough, James was also honored that year as Indiana's District 5 Principal of the Year. James has served in multiple roles in education, from teacher and coach to athletic director, assistant principal, and INPEA board member. And always, I promise if you don't know him, you will, always with a passion for serving students and families. James and his wife Jennifer, herself an educator, live in Westfield with their 5 children, all proud products of non-public schools. Please join me in welcoming INPEA's Executive Director, James McNeely. James?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure this works. You know how you like to know everything about the program?
I do.
And you're kind of confused as to what I'm doing?
Maybe.
Okay, so come on over here. Let's come over here. This is the part of the program I didn't tell you about. Are you nervous?
Should I be?
I don't know. So James is, as I said, the new executive director. And I believe that they welcomed you at the Catholic Center where your office is, right?
Yep, they're very welcome.
And you got a new...
I did. I mean, it's not swanky, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't say it was swanky. Yeah, okay, all right. And you like the desk?
It's a nice desk. Sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, James, we all wanted to give you a gift.
Okay.
And so John got involved, and we really were like, John, we can do this, but John got involved, and your staff and the Archbishop, I mean, like, people were just, they were very generous, and I was like, this is lovely. And so I want to present you a gift on behalf of all of us tonight, and thank you for saying yes to INPEA. And my son, Max, who is the treasurer, is standing behind you. Max Hagan is treasurer of the INPEA board. And we're going to ask James to open this present. What do you, James, I don't know, are you nervous?
Daryl, you were right. I don't love surprises.
I was not the one that picked it out. I think you'll know who it was. And if Max needs to help you, he can. Because, you know, we're running behind a little bit now because I didn't put this in the program. What is it, my friend?
So now, John, in life-size El Grande Cabeza, I think is how you say it. It will now be watching over me.
He will always, always be watching you. But you can always use it as a dartboard, too. Okay? I'll take that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess thank you, Daryl. It is truly an honor to be with everyone here this evening. I want to begin by recognizing some important people who helped make tonight possible. We have 50 schools here who sponsored a table for this 50th anniversary celebration. And thanks to a wonderful gift, we were able to offer those schools an incredible incentive, courtesy of some generous donors. Mike and Heather McGinley have been generous supporters of Catholic schools for many years. And for this event, through the McGinley's generous donation, INPEA was able to donate $1,000 to each school's SGO account for them to award in financial aid to their families. Mike and Heather are here tonight with their daughter, Maura. I ask them to please stand so we can thank them for their generous support of INPEA. I also want to recognize our lead sponsor for the event. Ed Choice is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization committed to understanding and pursuing a K-12 education system that empowers every family to choose the schooling environment that best fits their child's needs. They have long been a partner of INPEA to advance educational freedom, and we are grateful for their partnership. Their team is here tonight, and I ask them to please stand so we can show our appreciation for their support of INPEA in this event. In fact, we have many sponsors who have contributed to this celebration this evening. Thank you to each and every one of them and for their partnership in advancing our schools. I also want to thank, although maybe a little less now, our MC tonight, Dr. Daryl Hagan. Dr. Hagan, Daryl has been a huge supporter of INPEA over the years, a wonderful leader in Catholic schools, and just a great ambassador for all of us and for INPEA. We're so grateful he said yes to be our MC tonight. I'm still grateful he said yes to be our MC tonight. Thank you, Daryl. Finally, I want to recognize a group that is vitally important to INPEA. Our board of directors includes representation from all 13 of our jurisdictions. They share their wisdom and guidance to help make INPEA such a success. If you are currently serving on the board of directors, please stand so that we can recognize you. We are also blessed tonight with many former board members who were able to join us as well. You helped sustain and grow INPEA's legacy over the years to get us where we are today. If you have ever served on an INPEA board, please stand so we can show our appreciation. As I prepared for tonight, I kept coming back to one question. Why INPEA? Why is this organization so important to our schools and our state? That's not just a professional question for me, it's a deeply personal one. You see, for the last 25 years as a teacher and a school leader, I found purpose every day in the work that I did with my students. So when I was considering this new role, I had to ask myself, where would I find purpose in leading this association? The answer came as I reflected on the things I value and sometimes took for granted that INPEA did for me as a school leader and does for all of our schools. First and foremost, INPEA is a tireless advocate and collective voice for non-public schools. Their advocacy protects each school's freedom to boldly proclaim their mission and then the freedom to live it out. Their advocacy helps schools navigate the often complicated relationships with state and government and national governments, ensuring that our students receive equitable access to the funding that they are entitled to. Their advocacy has advanced school choice in Indiana, beginning all the way back in 2009 with the creation of the Tax Credit Scholarship Program. And even though the first legislation passed back in 2009, I've loved hearing Glenn Tebby and tell his stories about, as he was INPEA's first full-time executive director. And he tells stories of all of the hard work and advocacy that came long before that first bill finally became a law. The stories of laying the groundwork for the progress that we all now celebrate in this room. And I think about the more recent effort led by John Elsesser, working alongside our partners at the Institute for Quality Education to champion the Crossing the Finish Line campaign. That campaign resulted in landmark legislation passed last year. So beginning in the fall of 2026, every family in Indiana who chooses a non-public school will be eligible for a choice scholarship. Once again, Indiana will lead the nation in valuing a parent's right to choose the educational environment that best fits their family's values and their child's needs. Why INPEA? Because it gives your school a voice. But INPEA is more than advocacy. We're also about engagement and growth. In our classrooms, we know that to engage is to learn. INPEA helps ensure that our non-public school teachers feel connected and feel valued. A great example is the Educators Conference happening today and Friday at the Indiana Convention Center. Over 2,100 teachers and administrators coming together to sharpen their skills, grow as professionals, and return to their classrooms better equipped to serve their students. That kind of investment in educators is essential to maintaining the level of excellence our communities expect and deserve from our schools. Why INPEA? Because they're committed to supporting 10,000 educators in the important work that happens in non-public school classrooms throughout our state every day. As I reflected on these things, I realized the profound impact INPEA has had, not just on my school, but on the nearly 400 non-public schools across our state. That is important work. This organization's purpose is wide-reaching and vital to the health of Indiana's entire educational system. But for me, there's an even deeper reason. Like many of you out there, I answer to a higher power. Not just my beautiful wife who's here tonight, who's also an educator. I'm talking about our Lord and our Creator. Like many of you, I believe strongly in the wisdom of our founding fathers, in safeguarding religious freedom. And I've seen that freedom lived out beautifully in INPEA's membership. Just look around this room tonight. We have representation from Jewish schools, Christian schools, Baptist schools, Catholic schools, Lutheran schools, Islamic schools, Seventh-day Adventist schools. Families get to exercise their religious freedom when they choose the school that aligns with their values and their beliefs. That's true religious liberty, not just in theory, but in practice, playing out here in Indiana. In our schools, students learn about God when they learn about the world that He created. They recognize His presence in intelligent design and the beauty of His creation. They come to value their neighbors when they understand that every person is created in the image and likeness of God, with innate dignity and innate worth. INPEA's role is to help ensure that each of our schools can live out its God-given purpose every single day. So when I ask myself, why INPEA? These are my answers. But tonight, surrounded by friends and supporters, I also want to pose that question to you. Why INPEA? My hope is that as you think about your own school communities, the truth, the beauty, and the goodness lived out each day, you'll recognize the quiet but essential role that INPEA has played in making that possible. I am truly blessed to be here and deeply honored to lead this great association into its next chapter. Together, we will continue advancing the mission of non-public schools throughout Indiana, helping our state see the value and gift that each one of your schools brings to the educational system. Thank you, and God bless you. And now it's my honor to introduce our next speaker. The Council for American Private Education, better known as CAPE, works to foster communication and cooperation within the non-public school community and between that community and the public sector, all with the goal of improving the quality of education for every child in our nation. Just as INPEA serves as the voice of Indiana's non-public schools, CAPE serves as the voice of non-public schools across the United States. It is a coalition made up of national associations and state affiliates, including INPEA. We're truly blessed to have with us this evening the Executive Director of CAPE. Please join me in welcoming Michael Schuttloffel to share a few words.
Wow, it's such an honor to be here. As was mentioned, I work for the Council for American Private Education, or CAPE. CAPE is a national coalition of private school networks and state affiliates serving private schools, and INPEA is our Indiana state affiliate, and just an absolutely outstanding organization. When James and his team reached out, I leapt at the opportunity to come here tonight to congratulate INPEA on its 50th anniversary and to celebrate John L. Sesser. This is just an incredible event, and what an exciting time for private education. We have a new federal school choice initiative that was just signed into law a couple months ago, the federal scholarship tax credit, to complement the huge school choice gains that have been made in the states in recent years. What's remarkable is that this historic development happened within a month of the 100th anniversary of the landmark Pierce versus Society of Sisters decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. 100 years ago, the state of Oregon tried to force parents to send their children to only public schools. Oregon basically tried to end private education. But in 1925, the Supreme Court unanimously struck down that Oregon law, ruling that the child is not the mere creature of the state. Last week, CAPE held an event commemorating this critically important decision. We had several outstanding speakers talk about the history of the case and its importance. So, Pierce versus Sisters, decided on June 1, 1925. John often talks about how he remembers it like it was yesterday. He really has an amazing memory for a man his age. But the years have finally caught up with John, and he's decided to hang it up. For my part, I'm going to miss working with John. Under his leadership, INPEA became an absolute model for other state CAPEs to aspire to. In fact, I've told John many times that he was, without question, one of the 50 best state CAPE directors in the country. Easily top 50. No, but in all seriousness, I know I speak for everyone at CAPE when I say that John is immensely respected and someone whose departure is a loss to us all. He's exactly the kind of person we need right now, someone who has a heart for bringing people together. And that, of course, is the whole purpose of INPEA and CAPE. Bringing together private school leaders who often have deep differences, pedagogical differences, religious differences, political differences, but who share common principles, like the principle that private schools should be free to operate according to their mission and identity, and that parents should be free to choose the education that best fits their child. Having people who disagree on a lot of important stuff still come together to work on shared goals like this, it's a beautiful thing, and all too rare these days. John's had a lot of successes. INPEA, under his leadership, has seen school choice explode in the state of Indiana. INPEA has grown this conference into such a remarkable event. John's wisdom and perseverance helped the private school community weather the storm of COVID. I personally remember conversations with congressional staffers in the spring of 2020 where people wondered aloud whether this would be the end of private schools. Who would pay tuition for their kids to sit on Zoom for a whole school year? But private schools not only survived, they showed the nation what we're made of. I think America really gave private schools a second look during the pandemic, and people liked what they saw. That's thanks to people like those of you in this room, and to people like John Elsesser, who worked tirelessly to ensure that private schools had access to emergency aid that met the needs of the schools. Leaders of private school associations don't get a lot of glory, and they don't get rich doing this work. But John deserves enormous credit for his tireless advocacy in the State House and with the State Education Agency, with Indiana's federal representatives and senators, working hard behind the scenes to make sure that private schools are free to do what they do best. So, job well done, John. And the same goes to everyone at INPEA and everyone in this room. On behalf of CAPE, thank you all for your work. On behalf of the families who choose private education, thank you.
I'm not that tall, so I'm gonna lower that. Almost sounds like a eulogy. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for being here tonight and for your leadership with CAPE. And now it's my honor to introduce truly one of the greats. For the past 45 years, John Elsesser has dedicated his career to serving and advocating for children and families in private schools. For the last 18 of those years, he has led faithfully as INPEA's executive director, where he became a key partner in the Indiana school choice movement. He played an instrumental role in the passage of the tax credit scholarship program in 2009 and the Choice Scholarship Program in 2011. And in 2018, he was honored with the National Catholic Education Association's Leonard DeFoy Parental Choice Advocate Award. And if that wasn't enough, John, just this morning, I understand that at the opening session of INPEA, John was honored with the prestigious INPEA Leadership Award. And in recognition of his extraordinary service, that award will now carry your name and be known going forward as the John Elsesser Leadership Award. A little shout out to NCEA, our National Catholic Education Association. They're here. And I understand that if you were at the conference this morning, John brought up Daryl Hagan. Do you remember that? Anybody? And yeah, thank you. He said, "Oh, I remember this." And he very proudly said, because when I was board chair, I presented this award to the idea of the award, and John shared this morning at the conference, if you were there. John said, well, Daryl, I think you have to be dead in order to have your name on an award. But John didn't share the rest of the conversation. No. I was on a Zoom meeting and with John when we were talking, and I said, John, turn around, and because he said, people don't do that, Daryl. We're not doing that. We're not putting my name on anything. And I said, John, turn around and look in your office. I know there's at least one, and I think there were multiple, but the NCEA Leadership Award, am I right, John, was right behind you, named after a president of NCEA. And I said, John, if NCEA can do it, INPEA can do it. And we are very happy to have this award named after you. John's career also included serving as a Catholic school principal and as superintendent in 2 different Catholic dioceses. And John, I think we may even have some photos of you. Elle, would you cue up the photos for me? This is, black hair, black beard, look at that, looking good. Yeah, look at that, John. John, in case you're wondering, I don't think this is going to turn into This Is Your Life. And I'm not positive, but I don't think any former teachers or classmates are about to walk through that very door. But I'll let you sit and think about that. John is not finished because that's John. John never says no. Our team from ADAC, which is over here to my left, they were smart enough to jump in and swoop John up, and I believe John now serves as the new executive director for ADAC advocacy, helping to ensure that students across this nation have the proper and rightful access to federal resources. John and his wife Jill live in the Geist area of Indianapolis and are the proud parents of 2 adult children, Anna, who is married to Nick, and Zach, who is married to Rachel. Like so many of you here tonight, I am truly blessed to call John my dear, dear friend. Please join me in welcoming John Elsesser. I just want you to take this in. This is your legacy, my friend. Thank you. This is your legacy. Take it in. Now, John, please be seated. Thank you for that. John thought I was going to get him a present. Well, John, actually, I might. Because, as we were discussing, remember when you picked out the photo and you gave that to your friend James? You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, James heard that there might be an opportunity to give you something. And so we wanted to give you something. I didn't do it, but John, let me get on the other side of you here for the photo. This is my daughter, Margaret, and she is going to present this to John. Maggie, that's right. So we'll see. Now remember, James did this, not me.
Is this your picture?
No. It's something that you can hang in your ADAC office. And kudos to ADAC for grabbing John Elsesser. Well, you gotta open it.
I want to look. It is your picture.
I served with John for 15 years, and I don't want him to ever forget me. So, John, there you go, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Please.
Wow. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Daryl, not only for emceeing, but for your leadership at INPEA and for all of these years of our friendship. You know, it's been a great ride. 50 years of supporting and advocating for non-public schools in Indiana. And I've had the pleasure of being a part of the INPEA story for 18 years. That's over a third of INPEA's history. I guess that just means I'm old, and no comment from my children down here, please. But what a blessing it has been. We've accomplished a lot over those 50 years, and I do emphasize we. INPEA staff, past and present, board members, past and present, school leaders, past and present, elected officials, past and present, Department of Ed, past and present, and our great partner organizations. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't specifically mention that INPEA's only had 5 executive directors in 50 years, and they're all here tonight. Steve Noon, yes, I know, go ahead and applaud, and I'll... Steve Noon got us up and running in a part-time role, and then Glenn Tebby, as you've heard tonight, took over the reins as the first full-time executive director in 1994. When he moved to the Indiana Catholic Conference, Derek Redelman stepped in to the role in 2005, and I moved to Indiana to assume the position of executive director in 2008. And since they're here this evening, I'd ask that they stand and be recognized. Glenn, Derek, Steve, wherever you are, please stand up, an important part of INPEA's history. And now the reins are ably in James McNeely's hands. You know, over those 50 years, our schools have continued to excel academically. We've adapted and responded to the ever-changing educational climate here in Indiana while staying true to our missions. From taking state assessments to embracing and opening our doors to school choice to, as you heard earlier, not only surviving a pandemic, but being a model on how to pivot and rebound in times of uncertainty. And for those of you who are not Hoosiers in the crowd, those are basketball terms. Pivot and for those of you who are Hoosiers, join me in saying, because this is the statement, in 49 other states, it's just basketball. But in Indiana, this is Indiana. So we have a lot to be blessed with here in our state of Indiana. Non-public schools are alive and well. You saw it in the video, and we're growing. We have many schools involved in building campaigns around the state, and that's a tribute to all of you in this room. You know, I've told this story many times. You heard it in the video. Daryl alluded to it, but it's so apropos on this evening when we celebrate our 50th anniversary. Back in 1974, when I was only a junior in high school, 12 visionary non-public school leaders came around a table and decided that they could do things better together than they could do as an individual school or a group of schools like a Catholic diocese or a Lutheran district. And their vision for a collective voice birthed an organization that now represents over almost 400 schools across the state. Now I'm guessing that many of those 12 leaders have gone on to brighter pastures. And I just hope that they're looking down on us tonight with pride in terms of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 50 years. I have great confidence in what James and the INPEA team will be able to accomplish with all of you in the next chapter of INPEA's story. And by the way, as I'm speaking of staff, I do have to recognize INPEA's current staff, and if we have any past staff members here, please stand. Chris, Andrea, Beatrice, please stand up and be recognized. They worked tirelessly on your behalf, and they have worked 2 years to put this event together this evening. You know, I'm going to conclude this evening, because we didn't come to hear me talk, by thanking my family. They're all here this evening. It's not very often that we get everybody together. My wonderful wife of 44 years, Jill, is here. My son, Zach, my daughter, Anna, their spouses, Nick and Rachel, are here as well. You know, and after 18 years, you guys are my INPEA family. I've developed many, many wonderful friendships in my time and my tenure here, and I'm hoping that those friendships continue long past my tenure. So, in conclusion, thank you for blessing and enriching my life. Now, enough of me talking. Let's shift gears to our special guest, who's the person that we really came to listen to this evening. You know, I thought I knew a lot about Mitch Daniels until I read his bio, and I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. So I'm going to read it to you. Mitchell E. Daniels Jr. served as a two-term governor of Indiana from 2004 to 2012, and as the 12th president of Purdue University from 2013 to 2022. Yep. He currently serves as a distinguished scholar at the Liberty Fund. He was elected governor in his first bid for public office and then reelected with more votes than any candidate in the state's history. At Purdue, Mitch prioritized student affordability and reinvestment in the university's strengths. He ended 36 years of rising prices by freezing tuition and mandatory fees at a 2012 level for all students, and that freeze is still in place today. Prior to becoming governor, Mitch served as chief of staff to Senator Richard Lugar, senior advisor to President Ronald Reagan, director of the Office of Management and Budget under George W. Bush. He also was CEO of the Hudson Institute and had an 11-year career as an executive at Eli Lilly and Company. I get tired just reading that. Mitch earned his bachelor's degree from Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs and a law degree from Georgetown. He's the author of 3 books and a contributing columnist in the Washington Post. He and his wife, Sherry, have 4 daughters and 8 grandchildren. Would you join me in providing an INPEA welcome to Governor, President, but known more affectionately in these parts as my man Mitch, Mitch Daniels. So comfortable. Okay, hopefully my microphone's on. We're good. Now, I have to start with this comment. 18 years ago, when I came to Indiana, your education policy director, Marcy Brown Carter, arranged for me to have a little one-on-one meet and greet with you in your office. And as I'm completing my 18 years at INPEA, I get to have another one-on-one chat, although this time we have about 600 people watching us. Let me start with this. As you heard from the bio, you've had a very busy career. Lilly, Senator Lugar's office, Reagan and Bush administration, 2-term governor, president of Purdue University. How are you spending your time in retirement, and do you have any pointers for me?
Well, first, John, you omitted to mention I'm also a notary public. Now, I think you'll figure it out. It sounds like you already have, and I'm staying busy in a very different way, but I'm still paying very close attention to the work of this organization and to educational affairs generally. So very grateful for the chance to be here tonight with a lot of old friends and a lot of great old memories.
Now, I hear you're on the golf course a lot. Are you willing to kind of share what that golf handicap is?
Well, it's not getting any better, I'll just put it there.
You know, you've had such a storied career. As you look back, what would you consider your signature accomplishments?
That was always an impossible question. I mean, there were things I felt good about, different places. The years at Lilly, first saving Prozac from a national campaign by an organization calling itself a religion, the Church of Scientology, and later preparing the company for a successful survival of Prozac's expiration, which was a life-threatening phenomenon at the time. Then, you know, at the one tour in public office, nothing, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, nothing will exceed in my recollections the reforms we were able to bring to education ultimately with the help of you and so many people here. But you know, along the way, Indiana, I remember saying in my first State of the State address that I had already visited a CEO of a major company out of state, and who asked me, Indiana, like, what are you known for? I knew right away he was had a marketing career, and that turned out to be correct. And I remember telling him, I said, well, you know, sir, today that's a hard question to answer, but in a few years, you won't have to ask. And I think it was fair to say, as we ended those 8 years, Indiana was known for a lot of things, but one of the best business climates in the country, one of the only AAA credit ratings, the best infrastructure in the country, still found #1 each year by CNBC, and other things I could name, but I'll just return to the fact that after a very long and difficult step-by-step process, we were able to, I think, give this state the sort of equitable, excellent, and student-centered set of education laws in the country.
I'm going to ask you kind of, if you will, and we started there, to take a little trip with me down memory lane, especially as it relates to some of our experience with school choice in the country. When do you first remember somebody approaching you about this concept of school choice? And do you remember even who that was?
I don't remember a time when I didn't think school choice was an civil right and an essential part of any fair educational system committed to excellence. No two young people are the same, therefore schools need to be different and available to them and to their families. So, you know, I can't remember where I first saw it. It could have been in the work of Milton Friedman. It was certainly in the work at Hudson Institute, where I spent the 3 years from '87 to '90. We had education reform, some of the nation's finest scholars, and about the changes that were so plainly necessary. You know, we were 4 years past a nation at risk at that stage, and there was, we thought, a lot of momentum for reform. Of course, the forces of reaction kept it at bay for a very long time. Yes. But all through that period, you know, in my business years, no one here, I suppose, will remember this, but we made a big concerted effort in maybe '91. All the major businesses of the state came together and put a program in front of the legislature and asked them to pass it. And it was straight-armed, and it included choice along with reforms that we wouldn't get done for another 20 years, collective bargaining and performance pay and so forth. So, you know, I'd always been imbued with the thought that this was the right of every family to choose a school of any kind, that public policy ought to be agnostic about that choice. It belonged to the family, not to any politician or bureaucrat, but that the role of government should be to make that choice possible, and particularly for those who weren't fortunate enough in life to be able to simply afford it through their choice of residence or their ability to pay a private tuition.
I know we could leave somebody out, but I'm just curious. I know I have my list, but who do you think were some of the players that really helped get, and I think some of them are here this evening, that helped get school choice going in the state of Indiana?
Well, we'll leave out a lot of people, unfortunately, but I was happy to hear many of them mentioned, you know, starting, of course, with you, John, Glenn Tebby, for certain. My friends at Ed Choice, now led by my good friend Robert Enlow. You know, I was on the board of the Friedman Foundation when it was first founded by Milton and Rose Friedman. And at their insistence, their name would only be attached for 20 years, and so it was renamed, but was there slugging it out with us, making the case year after year after year, till we got to the opportunity for a breakthrough. The legislative leaders of the time, Bob Banning's here, he was a hero. He was there for every positive change, and many of which he initiated, but certainly supported every one that we've advanced. Brian Bosma was Speaker of the House. David Long was head of the Senate. Obviously, we needed their full support. And Bob reminded me tonight that one of the legislative leaders, as we gathered for the first time on this subject, having won an historic victory in 2010, which was as much about this subject as any other. There were other things we knew we couldn't do without a big majority, right to work, for instance. But we poured ourselves into that campaign specifically to win a legislative majority, without which we couldn't move. You know, what I too glibly, I think, call the educrat establishment, you know, it was immovable on big changes, and certainly on vouchers or anything like them. And Bob reminded me that at that first conversation, one of the major other legislative leaders was urging caution and move slow. And I don't know how I put it, but I know what I was thinking. I've waited 30 years to do this. We're not moving slow.
And we would have moved without you. I had the pleasure of going around the country for Ed Choice and speaking to other states who wanted to emulate what we did in Indiana. And I used to get the question a lot of, you know, what was your formula for success in Indiana? And the thing that I would tell folks is it was the 3 C's. You had to have champions, you had to have coalitions, and you had to have community and grassroots support. And on my slide for champions had Mitch Daniels in the middle, and this is with your ball cap on, and Fred Klipsch on one side.
I should have mentioned Fred.
The other, who's here this evening, is Dr. Tony Bennett.
Well, I was getting to him.
And Tony, if you're here, would you stand up, please, and be recognized? Tony was instrumental as the superintendent of public instruction to getting that choice movement. So thank you, Tony, for being here. I know Tina is with you as well.
I told you before you could ask me whatever you wanted, but I was going to answer the questions I wanted to. So we may get a little ahead of ourselves here, but you know, Tony being here is, first of all, appropriate. He is a national hero of education reform in all its forms, and certainly one of my public service heroes. But he also is emblematic of a matter that I hope is, of a phenomenon that I hope is apparent to everybody here. We're here to celebrate. There is a lot to celebrate. But there are some things that I hope everybody here is also sober about. One is that the forces of reaction, those who place the adults over the interests of adults over the interests of children, who place taxpayer dollars over results, haven't gone away, and they won't go away. And you know, reformers come and go, but that establishment is still there and still very committed to its view of the world. And Indiana is, as far as I know, the best example in the nation of the fact that you can place great laws on the books. Our charter school law, for example, every year is rated the best law in the country. But unless you have committed leadership of the kind we had in Tony Bennett, who wants to make certain that those laws are implemented aggressively, fully, that they're lived up to, you can be impeded, and sometimes, you know, fatally. I was so glad to see the Superintendent Jenner here tonight. I asked and had my suspicion confirmed. She's the first superintendent since Tony to come to one of your meetings, and that's a very good thing for the state of Indiana. The other thing that I would say, and then we can get back to happier observations, is that I'm worried that we've been leapfrogged. We were first. Our bill was the first statewide voucher bill in the country. It was a huge breakthrough. There's been so much momentum built over the last few years, and we should all feel great about it. I hope it's irreversible, but I never take that to the bank when the subject is education and the adversaries are still who they are. You know, I think we've got more work to do. I'll tell you something I was wrong about, John. I really thought that if we could achieve the breakthrough of 2011, that demand would call new supply into existence, that we'd see more options, more schools starting, and so forth. Now, it's hard to start a school. I know I was part of starting one called the Oaks Academy that many of you will be familiar with, and it's a great success story, only through the intervention of Providence, if you were with us in the early days. So I know it's hard. But I do think there's work to be done. I'm really excited to hear about building campaigns and growth. What our friends at the White Foundation are doing in Northwest Indiana is a spectacular commitment.
Yep.
But we've all got a lot of work to do. There are more families who need more and broader options than are available, at least where they live right now.
Any thoughts on how to encourage that growth? One of the challenges I know that our schools have is, both I think in the charter sector and the public sector, there are funds available for capital kinds of, we have to go out and fund develop, to raise money for any kind of a capital. Any thoughts on how we might be able to move that forward?
I don't have a magic answer, but there's a lot of private philanthropy that's come into being over this last 10 or 15 years, donor-assisted funds and the like. And, aggressive research to identify, some of these folks are hard to find by their own intent, they want to be low profile. But I have to believe we could reach the hearts of a lot of people who are looking for something really important to do with the things that life has given them. What better cause could they find than helping a child achieve that essential, first step toward a successful life?
You've mentioned kind of the adversaries to change, and it's something that I've, over my 18 years, kind of struggled with. And Katie and I have had this conversation. At times I felt like in the choice arena, it became a we and they. And we kind of created that was the enemy to a certain extent. And in my time, I've tried to have conversations with the Principals Association, the superintendent, just to have non-emotional, let's talk about choice. And I think anyhow, until we're able to get beyond kind of demonizing the other side, it's always going to be, some people are going to support it and some aren't. Any thoughts on how do we bring people together and break down some of that barriers?
First, I think you're too hard on yourself. The other side has always had an adversarial view. They feel threatened. I've always tried to take an empathetic and charitable view. These are folks who have careers, they have credentials, they have self-interest that I think as too often blinds them to what the real mission should be. It's about the children, what's best for them in all their variety. But you all didn't start this fight. So that's one thing. I hope that two things are different now and helping. Maybe this is me seeing what I want to see, but first of all, there's clearly been a shift in public opinion. People have seen that the scare stories about vouchers, they're going to drain money from public schools when in fact it leaves more money per student, the way these things are all set up, we all know. They've seen that a lot of the scare stories are not true. They saw in the COVID experience a sharp contrast between schools that did whatever they could to keep their students moving forward and schools that placed the interests of the adults first. So I think we've seen that. We have something else going for us, I think, in Indiana, and that is that before we were able to make the big breakthrough for choice, for charters, and the other reforms of 2011 that Tony Bennett had so much to do with crafting. But before we were able to do that, we created public school choice. sort of through the side door. When we reformed property taxes, it was a consequence of that. And we have more students, I think I'm still current on the facts here, more students are moving between one public school to another, even that are enrolling in non-government schools and charter schools.
Right.
So the public schools have seen, first of all, there is a strong impulse among parents to find whatever the best option is. And they're seeing that, you better compete. As some of us always said, competition's always healthy. And if your goal is better quality for every possible child, then we have a driver here in Indiana that's not present in a lot of other places. So I'm hopeful, and the trends look positive, but not good enough.
One of the things that INPEA and folks at the legislature, Bob Baining and others, Jeff Rotz, is what's the next chapter of choice? 2026, we were able to, legislature had the courage and the wisdom to pass the universal choice in a year delay, but we're all sitting back and saying, what's the next chapter look like? Any thoughts on where we go next in terms of choice?
I'm going to say again, I think it's the supply side. We need to be, if there, the demand is there, the vehicles are there. You and your colleagues may find ways to touch that up further, but at this point, I think the arrival, if it can be arranged, of more options and more choices closer to some of the families who aren't availing themselves now, would be very, very productive. I'm not sure I'm game for starting another school, but it's easy for me to urge everybody else to.
If you're interested, I'm sure some folks here would be willing to bring you on board. Just kind of shifting gears a little bit from school choice, outside of choice, there's a lot happening in education from pre-K through college. And the thing that in Indiana is, again, kind of taking the lead on is the melding of workforce development with traditional K-12, K-16 education. What are your thoughts on how that is happening? And I'd be just curious to hear what you have to say about it.
It's essential. I was having the discussion with Superintendent Jenner. And I say this as someone who was so lucky to spend 10 very fulfilling years at the state's flagship university. That's not just propaganda. I got a lot of data to prove that. But I became convinced even during those years that we may have placed too much. We may have pressured too many young people to go for a 4-year degree when there were other pathways. I think it is even more apparent now that there are other pathways. Developments in technology may be opening new pathways, and you see there's been a drop, I think an excessive drop that I hope corrects itself somewhat in public confidence about 4-year education, college education, and a much greater interest among young people and society at large in training of the kind you're talking about. We better get busy and doing it. I am convinced if we can make effective workforce preparation available, it would be the single best step the state could take economically. If we had a point of emphasis in our years in public life, even greater than than education, it was to build the economy of the state, as I always said, we're going to build the best sandbox in America, that if we can attract more jobs, better jobs here, everything else gets easier, including education. You have more revenue to do the things government must do without overtaxing people. Well, after a few years, we were able to say with conviction that we had checked most of the boxes. taxes, regulation, litigation, infrastructure, all the elements that, and yes, we were the only state outside the Sun Belt that made all the lists of best places to do business. We had one problem, and we're still working on it, and that's the workforce and preparation and the people side of that. And I know our current governor, our last governor, have this right in the middle of their bullseye, and it belongs there. But it doesn't matter what kind of post-secondary training, preparation, or education one pursues, and we need all our young people doing something post-high school. If we don't get the K-12 results up, we'll be chasing our tail.
Governor Daniels, we had a lot of superintendents, principals, other leaders in this room, and you've had a storied career. What kind of leadership pointers generally would you share with the group?
Well, patience is a virtue, but I always thought impatience was a virtue too. And I hope you're all impatient, however well you're doing now, to do better and find the next formula, and so that next year's student results are better than this year's. To never be satisfied, never to believe. This was a message we tried to send in very general terms to the whole state. Good enough never is. So hopefully that's a mentality that you bring. I know particularly in your field, as much as any I can think of, the ability to shrug off criticism, and however unfair, untrue, even personal it may become. When I got to Purdue, and I know I got the question a lot. People say, well, you've had a chance to do a variety of other things. What helps you the most? What do you think will be the most helpful? And I always said scar tissue. You just have to decide, and particularly in a field like yours, where, of course, passionate, caring parents are going to have issues and from time to time be dissatisfied. And then the opponents of freedom and choice that we've talked about will always be ready to pounce. And you just have to, eventually, it took me a long time to accept this, you just have to let it go and treat it as a cost of doing business. I always used to tell our folks in the last several jobs, I used to say, just remember, results are Trump. But I can't say it that way anymore, so I got to find a different way to put it. But you know what I'm talking about. You just, if you're entrusted as you have been with, in your case, you principals, you superintendents, with some of the most important jobs in our whole society, I mean that sincerely for all the reasons we just talked about, then you have to just commit yourself to excellence and to pressing for constant improvement, knowing that it's axiomatic that doing that will bring criticism and bring opposition from people who don't like change at all, or who feel their credentials are threatened in some way by the movement you want to create. And you just have to accept the fact that that's your assignment, and that in the end, if you make more right choices than wrong, and if you advance your institution in the interests of your students, that's your reward. And in the end, you'll forget all about those moments where you were stung and hurt and felt aggrieved.
Very well said. I mentioned I may ask you this, but I hear the day after Thanksgiving that there's a little football game going on in West Lafayette. And I know we may have a mixed crowd. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any predictions for that game between Purdue and the other university?
I'm predicting a national basketball championship at Purdue University. I told you I'd answer the questions I wanted.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Governor Mitch Daniels. Thank you.
We do have a little award for you, and here Glenn Tebby's bringing this up. I'll let Glenn present it, but officially on here, we give 2 awards at INPEA. We mentioned the one, the Leadership Award, but this is the Legislative Leadership Award, named the Glenn Ambrose Tebby Leadership Award. So there's a little bit of precedent, Daryl. Like, we do name awards after people at INPEA as well. So, Glenn, I wanted you to be able to present that to Governor Daniels. Thank you for all of your work and tireless efforts for non-public schools. Can we get a picture?
Sure. Get in here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Before we bring this celebration to a close, I want to take a moment to say thank you. First, I want to say a special thank you to the staff here, especially the guys and ladies that are up there that you can't see that have been coordinating this. Elle, Guy, Michael, and Jess, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. I also, as I mentioned at the beginning, there was a 50th anniversary planning committee, which included, and most importantly, that INPEA staff. And it's really hard when you do this because they're like, no, I don't want to stand. Maybe he's not talking about me. If you had any role in putting tonight's historic event on, please stand up and let us thank you. The committee, the staff, come on, stand up. We also want to thank our sponsors, speakers, guests, and volunteers. Thank you for your partnership and support. And most of all, thank you to each of you for being here tonight to celebrate this milestone with INPEA. We've honored, and I think we've done a good job, the 50 years of impact. And we've been reminded that every choice, every action, and every gathering like this one continues the ripple forward. Tonight's celebration is just one step in shaping the next 50 years of our story. Now, a little housekeeping before you leave. If you've been one of those people saying, gosh, those centerpieces look really good. Well, guess what? Now, I'll let you fight it out, but you can take those home tonight. So please decide who amongst you is getting it and take it home. And as we close, I knew that would get you going. As we close, let's carry forward the spirit of this evening. Gratitude for the past, pride in the present, and hope for the future. On behalf of the Indiana Non-Public Education Association, thank you again for being a very important part of this historic 50th Anniversary Gala. Have a wonderful evening, a great conference tomorrow, and safe travels home. God bless you.